All right. So, connecting. All right. Jeremy, welcome. Dr. Paul here with Men's Psychology, Romantopedia, and the Dr. Paul Substack. Here with Jeremy yet again, Jeremy Fox from Next Level Psychology. And we've been having a good time in the past months talking a lot about love, relationships, the dark side of that, narcissistic abuse. And we were thinking, hey, why don't we try something entirely new? And we were talking about the appeal of movies and some of the recent movies that have come out. And I had this experience, maybe a week ago where I was up late working on, all kinds of paperwork, business things. And the John Wick movie or set of movies came on again, or numerous movies. And I took a look. I love Keanu. He's great, like a really cool, good person. I just started watching, and within minutes, I was like hooked to watching yet again. And I've seen it like all of them 4 or 5 times each, and I just can't stop watching. And I was like, why am I doing this? Something about it feels good. Okay. So, and I was telling Jeremy about that, and
Mhm.
maybe we'll psychoanalyze the John Wick series from a hero's journey perspective at some point soon. But we thought we would talk today about just generalities of what is cinema? Why do we like it? Why does it often feel good? When does it not? Does it make us grow? Does it cure something? Cinema therapy or the psychotherapy of the cinema is what we want to talk about. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think that's awesome because we can look at films that have a wide variety and array of thematic material. So we can look at how relationships go well or not, and the different themes that play there, the different interactions. Right? We can look at the hero's journey and development of your own personal purpose or mission. Um,
Yes.
I mean, and the more that stories kind of adhere to that sort of mission structure, the more people can map onto it kind of unconsciously and understand what's going on there. I won't jump too far ahead, but I mean, the more you've talked before about how certain movies have more appeal than others, and that there's reasons for that, and that usually there's some kind of a journey or heroic journey markers there. So I really enjoy when a film uh, shows some kind of interaction or element that you and I relate to as providers, right? Like if there's really poor boundaries, like if there's a character who shows what it's like to deal with a difficult person, and the other character or several in the film have to learn good boundaries or how to adapt or something like that. I think it's a fun way to reference that. And it's a shared language. So with
Yes.
clients who've seen certain movies, I can reference stuff and they'll get it. Like if we talk about trauma as like this, time virus that makes you feel like you're there, you're in it, you're like time traveling, and kind of like, this is an obscure reference, but I'm thinking of it, of how Doctor Strange has to fight with the demon Dormammu who he keeps going back and back and trying to partner with. It's like it can feel like that with
How
trauma, I think, for people. So it gives
about
you a shared language.
yeah, I mean, I've done that all my professional career, reference movies. And it's like a shortcut to explaining a complex yet universally experienced or frequently experienced human experience,
Yes.
through the shortcut of a storyline, a snippet, a scene. Like you just now made me think of just the most brilliant performance by this particular comedian in his whole career, Adam Sandler, playing a
Yes.
traumatized dentist with horrific PTSD when his family is killed in 9/11 in the movie Rain Over Me with Don
Mm.
Cheadle as his buddy. I mean, it's just brilliant portrayal of the deepest abyss of PTSD, at least in a male. It
Yeah.
was incredible, right? And if somebody has seen
Yes.
that film, I mean, if I had a male who was traumatized through loss of something, like loss of a marriage, loss of a child, loss of something, I would just say, see that film and then get back to me, because some kind of healing is going to come out of just
Yeah.
watching that. Yeah.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, there are so many examples like that. I mean, you can see of people getting through grief and uh, I'm trying. There are some really good ones like that where the journey is kind of overcoming that stuff. I mean, The Whale is a really good movie with Brendan
Oh,
Fraser. Man, that one's rough. Have you seen
I've not
that?
seen it. I haven't seen it.
It's difficult,
What
but
does
it's
he
essentially
lose?
it's
Like, what are the stakes, and what does he lose?
so essentially this is a very it's a very interesting film because they make as many good movies do. There is characters are more complicated than they seem. So Brendan Fraser plays a father to a teen girl, and she absolutely despises him at the beginning, and he's
Ah,
an ex-husband as well. So he discovers that he is gay uh years into his relationship, or he comes to terms with it. Either one, it's kind of, we're shown a lot and not told as much. We just know that he's gone on to have a relationship with a lover, and he left his wife and kid. He loves his kid dearly and wanted to spend more time with her. Wife was not happy about it, so he has this very tenuous, strained relationship. And a lot of the movie takes place
ah,
in our main character's home, his apartment, because it's based on a
right,
play. So with the play,
right.
of course, you're going to have like a one room setup. But Fraser's character is morbidly obese and eats his feelings. And like the movie leads up, I don't want to spoil it, but essentially it shows this tenuous relationship between him and his wife and daughter. And he asks to spend more time with his daughter. And so the movie documents sort of her relationship to him, starting out with anger that he left the marriage to the mother, and then better understanding him. And then it's a very interesting look at what it's like when relationships go wrong, and how even when the person does it for a reason that, like, whatever the reason, it can go wrong when there's separation there, right? For sure. And um, the importance of getting to know someone on their own merits and not just what you hear about them. So as she gets to know her father, who's the Brendan Fraser character, like the teen daughter character, is very, like, she starts to open up more.
Hmm.
Um, and you
Okay.
learn more about why he's wanting now to get closer with her. I mean, it's a rough movie, but it's very, I mean, it's such skill in authorship, because you get to understand, like, oh well, it would make sense there'd be anger at him leaving the family, but like, oh, it makes sense also that he's trying to live his life. So there's a lot of tension and a lot of perspective taking you have to do, which I think is also a hallmark of a good movie, and just of being able to understand the human condition anyway.
Wow. That, I mean, there are countless movies that can be analyzed in that way. What Where my mind went as you were explaining this this conflict that Brendan Fraser is in, I immediately thought of some research writing that I was looking at, theoretical stuff about how you could be a good person, you could be authentic, you could be mindful, you could be mature, beneficent, and still not have things work out. Like, just being a good person isn't enough. It isn't enough when faced with a complex challenge like the character you just described goes through. And then that made me think of, wait a minute though, what is the universal in stories that end happily, whether it's in film,
Okay.
literature, myth, or anywhere else? It's the hero's journey. And so we need to wonder about what is a hero as opposed to just a good person. And you know that I'm all about love and romance and the theory of human courtship that I've developed. And I do want people to know that for a month only, I'm going to let anybody in to be a permanent member of the site Romantopedia. Romantopedia.com/register. I put out.
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned that is because love doesn't work out just by being a good person either. And so, what's the commonality, whether it's a story of survival, a story of trauma, a story of love, a story of war? I once heard that all good stories are either stories of love or war or both. I think that might be Robert McKee, the great dramatist teacher who wrote the book Story, the Bible of screenwriters, that also talks a lot about the hero's journey. I think he said that all good stories are stories of love or war, or the best is both. Love and
Mm,
war. Love during war is the best human story. Probably on numerous levels, because on the one hand, there's the feminine principle, the masculine principle. I think of feminine love, masculine war, and also war as a natural, horrific impediment to love, and um, weaknesses in love as perhaps an impediment in being a warrior. And then if you think about what is a hero, back to the romantopedia and the romance and human courtship
yeah.
models that I've been steeped in for 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
I ended up having to, for myself, define heroism as a virtue within relationships, but I guess it could also be a universal virtue in the hero story. I had to define it as a hero isn't just brave. A hero could be frightened, but is courageous and does the right thing, regardless if they're frightened. And I think what a hero does is to pull themselves or others into a precarious situation against somebody's will, maybe against their own will, maybe against the will of the people they're trying to help, but it's pulling into a situation against someone else's will or your own will because you know it will lead to good. That you know
Right.
better, you perhaps know better than those around you, that doing something they don't want to do will lead to good. And that could be making yourself do something that will lead to good. And it seems to me that's the difference between a hero or the heroic versus just a good person. Because you could be just a good person and get robbed or mugged or go bankrupt. I mean, bad things happen to good people, right? What do you
Right.
think of that?
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, so it's what you're saying is that have to be a hero, you have to have some kind of forward momentum and be willing to confront.
You need to, I think you need to be willing to confront yourself or others and heroically force yourself and or others into a situation of uncertainty, maybe danger, maybe certainly risk, that you know will lead to good
Okay. Yeah.
if you're bold and have faith.
Yes.
And,
I mean, I
and that
think
and that
that's
staying the way things are will lead to harm. Just leaving
y-
things alone, being passive will lead to harm. I think that's the
yeah.
difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, so if you look at this quote being a good person without heroism, I think what that looks like is um, abiding rules and respecting others' boundaries. But that's kind of it could be a static thing. Um, but heroism, meaning that forward motion, there's exposure there. So we talk a lot about exposure therapy. Like, what does that mean? Well, it means exposing
Yeah.
yourself to ambiguity, and it means, well, something might not go the way you want it to, but it's worth it for your values. So with this therapy called exposure response and prevention for OCD, there's value based exposures where you expose yourself to situations and deal with the emotional ambiguity and ramifications in order to pursue what matters to you, and you have to teach yourself out in the world, like, I can survive this situation that I thought might really throw me off, like, rejection, or it matters enough to me to go make friends, or to go pursue my my music making, to overcome my agoraphobia, or to overcome germophobia and touch things, and like, it's all towards some end. So you really have to open yourself. And it's interesting because it's in stark contrast to a lot of the messages that we're taught about, um, just avoidance and making things a lot easier.
Oh, right. Yeah. Avoiding instead of confronting.
100%. Yeah.
I was talking to a person the other day about the value and use of being in a cave. It's kind of the hero's journey portion where the hero retreats to a cave to like lick their wounds or cure
Yeah.
themselves of something, heal themselves. Or Jonah
Yeah.
and the whale. Jonah and the whale. Speaking of whales, is the same thing. It's being in an interior, now sequestered from the traumatizing environment, just like
Yes.
a cave would be. um I believe we were talking about a male in particular, but it would apply to females as well. But the interior of the cave or Jonah's whale is nutritious and healing and helpful and beneficial in a certain way, but only for a certain time. Because if you then stay too long in the cave or in the belly of the whale, you'll starve to death in the cave or go mad or get digested by the whale's stomach. You can't stay forever in the protective cave or belly of the whale, right? And
Right.
so that's a universal part of every story. And I was telling this person, it's the same lesson from a rare Stephen King short story. I believe it was made into like a TV miniseries long, long ago, called The Langoliers. And what was terrifying about The Langoliers is you could be in reality walking in the mountains on a hike and it's beautiful. Then all of a sudden, these gigantic buzzsaws come along and they're tearing up reality itself. They're tearing up the landscape. It's getting buzzsawed into pure nothingness. And you start running and you're trying to stay ahead of the Langolier buzzsaws. And what is the lesson of that? It's the same as the fact you can't stay in the belly of the whale forever. You can't stay in your protective little cave forever. You must be a hero. You have no choice in life in general, male or female, but you must be a hero, or the Langoliers will buzzsaw you up because you are staying still. You can't stay still. You have to grow. And I think that's part of what any of us can do when we are heroic. We force ourselves and
Yes.
others to get back into action toward the uncertain and risky future before us.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. You bring that up. I hadn't heard that series in a while. I remember that though, the Langoliers. I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would say one of the things that we face a lot now is role confusion, and so many different choices and choice fatigue. I mean, I love the stages of psychosocial development because I think they answer a lot of a lot of what we're talking about. They kind of map onto it. So uh the idea of developing your competency. So you have uh shame and doubt as a bad outcome, right? But autonomy is the good outcome, that
Right.
from Erickson stages. So you've got initiative versus guilt. You've got industry versus inferiority. You've got a lot of different things there that come, and then identity versus role confusion. So they go the way that we think about the hero's journey is like, well, so maybe you build some of those competency, the ability to take steps forward in a safe, contained way. And that gets an attachment theory that you need to be able to understand that a parent's there for you and that you can go explore. And then eventually that turns into, well, I know now I have an internalized sense of safety, and I can move forward because I know that I was raised well and I know what to do. So it I think we're seeing how those things can't be taken for granted.
Yeah, I think also I want to say that over the years I've known many marketers, right? And they knew
Yeah,
that I was developing what used to be called personal growth material, which really is a technology of character, understanding character growth, um, which is similar to psychoanalysis itself, and also
yeah,
human courtship. And they would always like throw ideas at me, and they'd be like, "Why don't you hire some actors and portray your steps of courtship using these hired actors, and you could write a script for them and blah blah blah." And I always thought to myself, "Oh my God, that would be so expensive, and I wouldn't be able to do it perfectly in the way that I would want people to understand the subtleties of social interactions and romantic interactions." But then I realized, wait a minute, for teaching purposes, if I take this scene from Match Point by Woody Allen, a masterwork, that scene from Midnight in Paris, which is
yeah,
perfection in explaining narcissistic abuse by a female toward a male, or if you look at Streetcar Named Desire, which is perfection in showing narcissistic abuse by a male toward a female. Midnight in Paris, by the way, would be the gender inverse of interesting gender inverse of Streetcar Named Desire.
yeah,
That all I need to do is have film sequences in mind where Oscar-winning actors are perfect at expressing the nuances of a specific behavior, and genius playwrights and screenwriters and directors are perfect at putting it together in the simplest, quickest form. I don't need to hire actors. I don't need to write scripts. It's in the films, it's in the movies. Everything is explained about us. And then if you add Shakespeare to the mix, I really think the master triple combo for rapidly using stories for learning psychology would be any set of ancient mythology. It could be Chinese, could be Hindu. I like Greek. That explains the instincts, the reptilian brain. Shakespeare was the master of the human emotions.
yes,
All scenarios to do every color and shade of human emotion, Shakespeare has the canon of Shakespeare. They call it the canon, meaning it's the complete compendium, the complete encyclopedic depiction of the drama of human emotion. That's everything about the mammalian brain, and the limbic
yes,
system is Shakespeare. And then the complexities of the higher brain and how different we all are from each other. Our life stories are all different. Our level of character development is different. We all have unique traumas. It's almost unlimited. But the storytelling for that reminds me of the unlimited nature of modern cinema. How many stories are now told, not just Shakespearean, not just Greek myths, but infinite number of possibilities for telling a story in modern film. And I think that addresses the higher brain. So we have storytelling for each level of the brain.
yes,
And if I could riff just on basic principles, like I 20 years ago, I wrote a chapter for Romantopedia and romantic dynamics called The Movie of Your Life. And the
yeah,
reason I wrote that article, and now it's a chapter in all the books and the website, is the movie of your life was my way of very vividly explaining all the working parts and nuances of what Freud and successors called observing ego, or what today many people call mindfulness or sentience, or even authenticity
right,
derives from your your present minded state, your ability to be present minded. And it could branch into certainly the existentialists and existential therapy, which are about what can we do right now that has meaning? What has
sure,
meaning right now in the present moment? So, why is observing ego? the most important learned human skill and is universal in all true psychotherapies. It's the reason that the early psychoanalysts had a couch that you laid on, and they were at the head of the couch. You couldn't even see them. They were disembodied voices, basically. It was so they
Right.
could let you be so looking interior into yourself in a present minded state that you could free associate and explore your traumas and the structure of your mind and your character. It could only be done that way by getting you into a present minded state. And that's what observing ego literally is. It's more than just mindfulness. It's the ability to step outside yourself and look back at both you and the environment around you and see the lay of the land and wonder what drama is unfolding here. What power do I have to choose directions to turn this story in my favor toward goodness, toward me and others, and have a happy ending to this story? That's what observing ego does for us all. So it's literally like being the narrator of your life. That's another way of explaining what is observing ego. It's stepping outside yourself to become the narrator of your life, looking at your life as it's being lived and as you are living it, but also being like your own. They used to call it, my grandma's day, Jiminy Cricket. The Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder was your
Conscience.
conscience, the
Yes.
narrator watching you behave and advising you how to behave. And there was a movie with Will Ferrell, I think called Stranger Than Fiction. I think it was called Stranger Than Fiction, and it was a comedy. It was hilarious, but it was a vivid depiction of this process of there being a narrator that appears in Will Ferrell's head, telling him
Oh,
what he's doing as he's doing it. And it was starting to drive him crazy because it was saying he walked down the street. And Will Ferrell's like, stop talking. I know I'm walking down the street. Stop narrating my life. But I was like, that is observing ego right there, the most crucial learned human skill without which we cannot change or grow. You can't change or grow if you can't stop to look at who you are, how you feel, what you're thinking, what you're doing, and what's happening around you, and strategize like a hero, stepping into the unknown and doing your best to try for a better path. And you can only do it through observing ego. In fact, it's the cure for regret. We never have regrets if we did our best and still lost. Like I lost at a sports game last night twice, two weeks in a row, no win. It was terrible, but I learned a lot. I don't feel
what do you
devastated anymore today.
what do
I
you
have no
play?
regrets. Pickleball
Right. Okay.
in a tournament. But my point is, I don't have any regrets about it because I really did do my best. I was very mindful, conscious, and aware of doing my best with skill, and it just wasn't enough. And so even though I lost, there's no regrets. Now you could lose and have regrets. You could even win something and have regrets. So with observing ego turned on, there's no regrets. Why am I going into all this? Because one of the biggest secret things about film and cinema therapy, psychotherapy of the cinema, how it exactly works are via two principles. Number one, if you are watching a great film that is well loved by many or most, then you're watching the hero's journey and you're watching a main character who is a universal human, meaning any of us could see ourselves in the shoes of the person, whether it's Forrest Gump or Joan of Arc or John Wick or whatever, Gladiator 1 or 2, or any of the superhero films, any film that you love the main character and you love the film because you are the main character. The more universal to human experiences and traits the main character is, the more of us could easily fit into their shoes. and thereby become the main character. When we get lost in the film, we're literally living the film through our mirror neurons. You've heard about 1992. They were
Yeah.
discovered that they mimic what we hear in a story. We literally experience as if we were actually in that story, physically there. So we've become the main character. Now we get to learn all the lessons the main character learns. And the great thing is, if we already know ahead of time that the ending is happy, that the character
Mhm.
will win and be a hero, we get to enjoy without worry about the future that we will win in the end. And we get the joy and passion and experience of getting to enjoy danger, threats, but the faith. It's like giving us faith, the knowledge that for sure we will win. We get to enjoy fighting the dragon or walking at the edge of a cliff and fighting an army of monsters or something, because we know we're going to win. It's like artificial faith in ourselves that we're going to win in the end. But I know I'm going on here, but I want to say this, it's important. If we are in the shoes of the main character, that literally is observing ego. Why? Because we are watching as an audience ourself and our life. We have stepped out of ourself in the audience chairs. We look back at ourself, who is the main character. Why do they call it a character? Because it has personhood. It has all these features of psychology that make it a character. Only in this case,
Yes.
it's our character that we are watching grow. And that's exactly what observing ego is. So I think the more you go to the movies that you love, the more you are training your mind at this skill of observing ego, the crucial human skill for change and growth, without which you cannot change or grow. So I think that's rule number one of how movies work to heal us and make us grow. Rule number two is simple. You'll notice this in superhero films that fall very flat, or a very recent Disney film that they're trying to like torch before they even release it. They already know it's a disaster. Snow White. Why? Because you must not violate taboos. A hero
Yeah.
doesn't violate taboos, and a movie must not violate taboos. What do I mean by taboo? A taboo is doing something, it's debauchery, it's profane or obscene or both, because it goes against what is natural biological human but biologically based human behavior. When we violate a taboo, we have gone against nature. That's what a taboo is.
Right. What taboo do you think Snow White's breaking? I'm just curious.
What do I what?
What taboo do you think Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is breaking?
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I recall there being a big kerfuffle over the main character girl saying she hates men or something, or she hates Prince Charming. Prince Charming is a stalker.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That's
was thinking,
that's
yeah.
just that's would that be obscene? No, it's profane. It is profane for her to say that, because Prince Charming is the love interest of Snow White in this mythologic tale that is so loved by generations of Westerners, well, of the world, really. And this one girl who was born yesterday is so profane as to say, by profane, I mean violating that which is goodness and beneficence and natural, the natural order of things, where love is possible, where anything is possible, where love prevails. In this case, between a man and a woman, between a prince and Snow White. That is the story. If you want to see some other story, then go see some other story. But this story is a man and a woman find love. And so the taboo that was broken was the very person who is supposed to champion being you, aka the main character, has violated everything about the goodness, beneficence, hopefulness, and faith that love can be found. Her own character, she has desecrated with commentary about Prince Charming as a stalker. I mean, it ruins it. Nobody should go to that. Nobody
Well, who
with
knows
common
what I
sense
mean,
would
the
go.
thing is, you don't really know what the story's gonna be about then. I mean, is it just
Then
spending
it's
some
not Snow
time
White.
with
It's someone
you're
else
spending
in.
some time with some dwarves and the witch, you're fighting
Right,
an
right.
evil
Everybody's
queen, like,
afraid
what
of how do you depict dwarves? How do you depict a witch? The witch is supposed to be ugly. Instead, it's Gal Gadot, gorgeous female. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it violates all the original moral lessons and hopeful, faithful lessons about love and happiness. Happiness, even pursuing happiness. It's about. It violates all that. It desecrates it all, um, from what I hear and what people are writing about it. Yeah. So, and that's just one example. You have seen all kinds of superhero films fall flat, right? Ones
Yeah,
where people aren't behaving like the middle of the bell curve, average male or female in the middle of our bell curves. There, you see people behaving bizarrely compared to their peer group that we want to be stepping into their shoes from.
sure,
We can't step into their
sure.
shoes if they're
What
acting
is the
like bizarre. Um,
Gotcha. What is the movie you say people don't relate to? You often use it as an example.
for a superhero movie, Captain
Or
Marvel.
no,
People
for another
hated
one.
Captain Marvel.
Okay, but for any movie, was it have you mentioned that with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? I feel like you've used that as an example.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've
Or
used that.
have you, like, is that one's one that is too weird for people?
Yeah. It is. It is.
The
But
thing
that was
with
the.
that one,
Yeah.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was just gonna say that I thought that movie was the best I could get out of that thing was it's about beliefs, how we all live in our own personal world of beliefs,
Yeah,
uh, and we construct a world with rules and laws the way we wish it would operate. And then when the
yeah,
world doesn't work the way we would like it to, it doesn't fit our world, that then there's cognitive dissonance.
yeah,
And then we
yeah,
maybe get awakened to we need to reach out into the world and find out how does it really work. That's kind of what I
yes.
got out of that.
Yeah, my favorite thing about that one was that you can say that EMDR therapy is not that because it's not memory deletion because they go in and delete dude's memories, and it's like
Oh,
you
right,
actually
right.
can't do
Yes.
that with
Yes.
trauma work,
Yeah.
or you like you probably would. I like in the movie there's consequences for it. Like, you probably, how much of your memory could you delete before you actually stop becoming who you become someone else? Like,
Yeah.
anyway, no, there's well, film as I mean, I think what you're getting to read into it a little bit, and I got to sign off after this. I got a
Yeah.
person at my time here. It's going to be 2 p.m. I know it's going to be noon, or yeah, your time. Um, One of the big things is art, and this comes all the way back around to like theories of art and epistemology,
Yeah.
right? Aesthetics and epistemology. So, should art be used to be instructive on what is true and beautiful in a sort of prototypical way where you have an everyman or an every woman character that lives up to the best of humanity, or almost like Pilgrim's Progress back in the day for Christians? Or does art need to be an exercise in validation and to an extent representation, in showing like this exists, this is a thing? Or some, I think some semblance of the two is what a lot of people would say it needs to be. um but I think what you see is movies that are just standalone vanity projects, or
Yes.
ways to show that, this needs to be shown as well. It does not always hit because
Yes.
if it's not formulated with the most mass appeal, it doesn't have enough lift. I mean, a movie's like a rocket ship. It's a massive $1 million thing,
Right.
multi-million dollar easy.
Right.
If it doesn't have
Part
enough
part of a
launch and
billion.
boost, what?
It's a portion of $1 billion
Oh yeah.
gamble.
So if you don't
Right?
have enough, yeah, if you don't have enough momentum to that, the fuel to boost that,
Yeah.
you're not going to make it. It's going to fail. Like recently, you brought up like the Marvel movies. A lot of the recent ones have failed. Well, for one
Right.
thing, how do you come back from Thanos, like the ultimate big villain they build up to for years and years? They haven't. That's not. They were trying to build that up with someone who got canceled, to be Kang the Conqueror, and that after that, it's just been really interesting. I'll say that much.
Well,
Um,
I know you got to go, but I love what you just said, and I listen to every word. And the way I would slice and dice it into like chop chop, what are the take home lessons? I,
mhm.
I strongly feel that the rules that a good movie, and a profitable movie has to have observing ego it is giving you, or it will fail, and it has to be almost universally providing you the ability, whoever you are, to step into the main character's shoes. And so it would be fine. I heard what you said about art. It would be fine if something rare about humans were depicted, something rare, but not only seen in a tiny number of humans. It
Sure.
we rarely we rarely pay attention to, or something we rarely give credit to, or we rarely notice, but it would have
Right.
to be a rare thing in all people. Otherwise, the movie will fail. And otherwise, what it means is the movie was a vanity project, which is someone's narcissistic self concern and aggrandizement, which is why the movie falls flat and it's lame and it's worthless.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, that's very well said, man. This is great. We could go on and on. I want to talk so much about these films now, but we will. This is a great teaser. It's even teasing to me, the person who's helping to co-host it here. So I guess the job is done.
oh, that's awesome. My job is done.
I'm excited.
All
We'll
right.
keep this going. I think it's a fun weekly thing to do. I'll see you soon, man. This is great.
You got it, man. Thanks. Enjoy, everybody.